Yes. Hello. All good?
Brilliant. Yeah, apologies about that. Thanks, guys, for everyone for being patient. We're going to get straight into the meeting now. Sorry, just a bit of a technology issue with a new whiz-bang computer that's not working, whiz-bang. So, today's Pro Player Pathway meeting, guys, we've got a session based around nutrition and also pre and post-season planning. Also, there's going to be an opportunity. Ben's made me aware there's been a couple of questions that have come in. And also, we will set up an opportunity, if we've got time at the end, if anyone's got any other pressing questions that we can help you with. We'll try and keep the questions to the talk for today, which is around nutrition and pre and post-season planning. If anyone's got any other questions outside of the Pro Player Pathway meeting tonight, it's outside of nutrition, or it's outside of pre or post-season planning, we'll get back to you on them after the meeting via email, or we'll give you a call early next week to go through them with you. So what I'm going to do is, guys, hopefully I'm going to share my screen and you'll be able to see it. Fingers crossed. Can you see my screen okay, Ben?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk a little bit about, because most of you will be aware and some of you were with us for the past couple of weeks on our tour to the UK, which was an amazing trip of a lifetime and experience. It was Ben's first time over. Well, he's still actually in the UK. Actually, whereabouts are you, Ben?
Outside Reading with my family at the moment.
Outside Reading. Very good.
Yeah.
Very, very good. So Ben's still in the UK at the moment, and he's been with us on the tour for the past 2 and a bit weeks, and we got to experience so much stuff, learning from coaches, having a look at how professional the clubs are set up and just a different level that they go to for the players and to help the players develop. So part of the EPPP project that most of you will be aware was the project I worked on when I was based in the UK myself. And on this next slide that I'm going to share with you are some of the key findings that we went through. And the 2 key areas that we're going to focus on tonight is nutrition, which is underlined towards the bottom, and also pre and post season. And that's what we're going to go through at the moment. We'll give you an opportunity in between some of these slides as well to flick in some questions. Now, I'll just play this video back. Some of you may have seen this, some of you may not have seen this before. And I'll explain why it's quite important and quite paramount why we go through 1 or 2 of the success stories of when I was in the UK, and one of the players that we did work with and develop was Luke Thomas, and I'll just play this video on.
Come the Leicester City players, led by Kasper Schmeichel, for the first of a trio of remaining Premier League games. And it is on the biggest of stages. Tielemans racing away down the right, and he will get there before Bailly. And that's a decent ball as Vardy leaves it for Thomas, and what a stunning goal that is from Luke Thomas, the academy product, back in the side tonight. And he's watched that one as it's been floated in by Tielemans onto his left boot. He side-footed it into the top right-hand corner.
Apologies if there is any Manchester United fans in the group, but the reason why we've showed you that video is it's not just the coaching that goes on during the training and during the season. There's a lot more that goes on to get a player to that point. And 2 of the key areas that we identified, which we just spoke about, one was nutrition and one was pre and post-season planning. Now, for Luke Thomas's case, he was always one of the smaller players in the squad. He always struggled physically. A lot of people believed he wasn't going to make it. And he used to get told by a lot of people outside of the club that was going to be really difficult for him to make it due to what they thought was a physical disadvantage. We knew through the EPPP findings and within the Premier League and the English FA that wasn't the case. If we persisted with the programme, if we persisted with his training, once he got to 17 and 18 years of age and started turning into a man, all of those physical differences would go out the window. But what we did to ensure for all of these players who we worked with was to ensure that we covered every single corner And one of those corners is that physical corner. And within that physical corner is included nutrition and pre and post season. And I remember having many conversations with players and families when I was in the Premier League. And it was more so paramount with Luke because he felt like he was at such a disadvantage because of his size that they really followed through every single part of the football journey and got the nutrition going correctly, got the pre and post season programs going properly. And that's what we're going to talk to you about a little bit now. So we spoke about this on a few occasions. And for those that we haven't, we'll just give you a little bit of a reminder. But from an Australia point of view in clubland, you need to take your club as 30% of the makeup of if you are going to make it as a pro football player or not. 70% is everything that you do outside of your club. Now, 70% doesn't mean that that's pro player pathway, but it's definitely part of that 70%. I would say it's probably a good half of that, about 35% of that 70 is all your pro player pathway. The other 30% is how you apply yourself as a player. Are you following everything we're giving you to do? We can contact you and speak with the families and players on a daily and a weekly basis. But if you're not going out and doing the work yourself and you're not putting it in, then you're not going to get there. And you need to make sure, whether you're 12 or 14 or 16, don't be relying on mum or dad. Don't be relying on nan or pop, auntie or uncle, or the neighbour. You need to make sure that you're going out and doing what you should be doing. So it is that key time of the year now when most players are out of season. And I've had a lot of players reaching out to me saying, I'm not sure what to do. Should I be doing football? Should I be having a rest? And this is what we're going to cover with you over the next hour. So those two components that we're going to cover off. And the first part that we're going to cover off is our football plan, which entails our summer programme. So Ben will be sharing with everyone by the end of next week at the latest a summer programme, which is what you would call a post/pre-season plan, because it's post the season that you're coming out of, but it's also in preparation for your upcoming season, which will be early next. Now, I know there's some players who do continue on with playing with club. Some of you are in Summer League, some of you are in the Premier Academy Leagues, which has recently just folded up but reset up again under each state. So for those guys who are in Queensland, I've just seen communication out today to players that the summer season will be kicking off on the 15th of October. So we're just going to walk you through a little bit of a look at the summer programme and what it will look like. And there's 6 or 7 days that are covered in this, and it will change week by week. Now, it's set up initially for an 8-week programme, and then we just rinse and repeat. So for those players who are in a 12-week break or a 14-week break, we just keep going back round to week 1, and then we just complete those weeks until we get back into our season. Now, you'll notice on the left, and you don't have to pay too much attention to this detail, we will share all this with you on an email, and Ben will send this out to you. In relation to Monday, if we look at Monday in strength training, we'll cover off in a moment what strength training looks like. Now, we need to be careful with this because obviously players who are 12 years of age or younger, we don't want you to focus any time on strength training, and we'll inform you guys what we're going to get you guys to follow. But players who are 13 years of age or older should be following the strength training elements for this programme. And Mondays, we don't have to stick to the days as well, but we just need to make sure that during the week, you do at least 2 strength training sessions. If you're 13 years of age or older, you need to make sure you're doing at least 1 speed session a week, 1 endurance session a week, and 1 long run a week. Now, some of you might look at some of this and go, the distances are very short. If you're 16, 17, 18, some of you who are 12 and 13 or younger might go out a little bit far. Guys, it's all tailored around, if you have a look on the right-hand side, we have the split times and the averages of what you should be sticking to. And we'll also even help you on how you can make sure you stick to these times. And this can be all done with a device, with a phone, with a watch, and we'll educate you a little bit around this. So as an example, on a Tuesday, if you're doing your speed session, you need to go down to the local park. you need to map out 200 meters. Now, the best way to do this, guys, if you don't have the ability to mark out how far 200 meters is, again, with the device, you can quite easy using your GPS. You can map out how far 200 meters is roughly. You can then make sure you got your GPS tracker turned on, and you can mark it by jackets, cones, whatever you want to, sticks on the floor. Just mark out your 200 meters. It doesn't have to be an exact science. And you'll notice for your speed work, it's set 200 meters and you do 7 reps and you rest for 45 seconds. So it's quite straightforward, guys. You'll sprint for 200 meters and the pace is there. So I would say for most of you, that's going to be going at about 60, 70% of your speed. So it's not your maximum. Then you'll rest for 45 seconds. Again, you're going to need a watch or a device to time this so you can make sure you get the right rest period. And then you go again. Once you've done 7 reps of that, that's your speed work done for the day. It's that simple. Now, we've got Wednesday as a rest day. You might say, look, Tuesday's a really busy day for me. I can't get out to do my speed work. We'll just switch your rest day over with the Tuesday. Thursday is your endurance run. And this is a 2K run to start off. And you'll notice from the pace, anyone who understands a little bit about running, that's really, really slow. And that's what we're looking for in week 1. We don't want anyone to be sprinting out on an endurance run. Okay. Again, how do you record 2 kilometers? Hopefully some of you have got some smartwatches. Some of you, if you don't have smartwatches, you can record these on apps as well. So there's various apps that you can use. And Ben will send out some information next week in that email, and it will contain the information around about the different apps that you can get on Android and Apple to help you recording 2 kilometers on your run. Also, again, when you do any of this, you need to make sure that you've got your GPS trackers on so we can see that you are doing what you should be doing on a weekly basis, because we then want to check, and if we're not seeing that players are doing the work, we can reach out to mums and dads just to make sure everything's okay, and then to ask the question why you're not following your program to make sure you're accountable. On Friday, we've got the strength training session in again. Again, we'll go through that strength training with you in the next couple of slides in a bit more detail. And then on a Saturday, we've got the long run. Now, you'll notice again with the long run, it's up at 4 kilometers. Some of you, that'll be easy. Some of you, that'll be daunting. But guys, the pace, for anyone, again, who understands running, 7 minutes 30 is basically just slightly quicker than a walk. Now, you'll notice as well on the last slide, we advise you, if you find it is a little bit too easy for you, you can step up the pace to run at maybe a 6 minute 30 or a 6 minute pace. But also, you shouldn't finish a long run puffing and panting and blowing like you've just run a marathon. You should finish a long run feeling like you've used maybe 60 to 70% of your reserves, but you should feel like you've still got a little bit of energy left to go in the tank. Now, if you're finding you're getting to the end of the 4 kilometer run, then that means you've gone a little bit too fast and a little bit too hard. Now, my advice for the younger players in the group, if you need to walk the 4 kilometers to just feel like you've still got 30% to go, then that's what you guys need to do. Because as it says on this slide, this is only week 1 of the program. Okay, we've got Sunday as a rest day, and then we need to then fill in the rest of our football. Now, what I'll do is I'll roll on to week 2, and you'll notice that the only thing that changes is your average pace, and the distances change slightly on the long run. So you'll notice on the long run in week 2, it goes to 4.5 kilometers. Then if we go to week 3, it goes to 5 kilometers. And then we will take you all the way to week 8 when we are looking at 7 kilometers. So if you're running on average a 7 minute 30 pace, okay, it's going to take you probably just on or around an hour to complete that distance. Now, again, for the younger players, probably 12 and under, if you're struggling with that distance, I would walk it for the first 8 weeks of the program until you build up to a point where you can run for that distance. So, guys, remember with all of this, you shouldn't be finishing the endurance or the long run puffing and panting to the point that you cannot do anymore. You're that exhausted. The only one that you should be feeling like that should be more so the speed work. Okay. So the endurance and the long run, we're looking for you to go 60 to 70% of your maximum. Now, in regards to your strength training, you do need to purchase a couple of cheap items to help you with the strength training. And we'll give you an idea of some of the exercises. And again, Ben will share this to you. But the only things you need, now, the 2 6-kilogram dumbbells, that's based on a 13/14-year-old child. If you are 12 or younger, the best thing for mums and dads to do, we're going to look for you guys for strength training. We're looking for you only to use your body weight. So there's no need for anyone who's 12 or younger to purchase any dumbbells. Now, for the guys who are 13 years of age and older, you can get these dumbbells in places like Kmart for as cheap as $5 each. I picked up some last year and they cost me $5.50 for each dumbbell. So you don't need to go to the Rebel Sports of the world because they'll charge you $50, $60 for a dumbbell. You don't need them. Dumbbells are dumbbells. The weights are the same. It doesn't matter what name's on them. I would advise you just go to somewhere like Kmart. The exercise ball, I want all the players to purchase the exercise ball. So if you are 9 or 10, all the way up to 23, everyone needs an exercise ball. Again, I picked up one of these in Kmart, I believe, for $8. You don't need to go and get one of these fancy ones, guys. It's $200. I've got both. I've got a cheap one. I've got an expensive one. And the cheap ones lasted just as long as my expensive one. So again, you don't need to spend more than $15, $20 purchasing all three of these items. For the players who are 12 years of age and younger, you only need to purchase the exercise ball. Now, what we'll do is we'll share the demo out with you for the strength training. There's a video that comes with it. And a lot of it is in and around players using their own body weight for the exercises. This is a good one as well for mums and dads to get yourself fit and strong, get involved with the players if you can as well. It's fun just to see how hard it is. And a lot of it does involve balancing with the exercise ball. And a lot of the exercises are really tricky when you get down to them. These are strength training exercises I follow 4 or 5 times a week in the gym myself, and they work wonders. The strength training is designed to help the body get stronger during pre-season and post-season, and also enable them to cope with the running, but also to cope with the added football that gets added into the program. So again, when we share this presentation, you'll see there's a link that says click here. When you click on it, it will actually walk you through the video of all the exercises. We're not going to go through them now because it does take about 15 minutes to go through the video. But when you watch it yourself, you'll see that the strength training element takes up 15 minutes of your time, and you've only got to do it twice a week. So a little bit of a summary on the strength training, guys. It's followed for 8 to 12 weeks. If you've completed 8 weeks, you just go back to week 1 again until your full pre-season starts with your football club. Until that point, you maintain this program. You should have off 7 to 10 days from when your football season's finished. So if your football season finishes last Saturday, you shouldn't start this program until next Wednesday. If you've already been out for a couple of weeks, don't worry too much about that. We'll get you this sent out by the mid to end of next week, and you get started on it straight away. In relation to Christmas and holidays and summer, I know there'll be a lot of families going, oh, we're going to be away for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Guys, if you're staying in the country and you're staying in Australia, take your dumbbells and your exercise ball with you and keep your training up throughout the summer. Don't stop for 2 or 3 weeks. Obviously, Christmas Day, maybe Boxing Day, maybe New Year's Day, you can have a day off. But if you're, guys, if you can just turn your audio off, please. I've got a little bit of sound coming back from some people. Can you just make sure all the sound's muted? Thank you. Sorry about that, guys. I was just getting a little bit of sound back. Okay, now we've also put on here, we understand things happen from time to time. There's going to be some missed sessions and that's fine, guys. But if me and Ben spot that players have missed a week or 2 weeks, if we haven't received an email to say there's a reason why, we will follow up just to make sure everything is okay, but also to make sure that you are following the program as well. We need to make sure every player is accountable. If you want to get success, then you need to make sure that we're following this through. The bottom point, if you find the split time for the running to be too easy, then you can adjust it to make it harder on yourself. But remember, it should be about a 6 or 7 out of 10 for the endurance run, and the long run, it shouldn't be a 9 or a 10 out of 10. In relation to your sprint training, that should be around about an 8 or a 9. It should be challenging and you should be struggling a little bit. Now, the goal is 70% football and 30% non-football for the remainder of your pre-season and post-season. Okay, so we're just coming into our post-season now, and then you'll start to enter into that pre-season after Christmas. You need to make sure it's really important that you keep your football up. So 70% of your week should be football, 30% should be non-football. Now, the program that we've just walked you through, that would be included in your non-football activities. So just a reminder, and Ben will include this on the email to you next week. If you are 13 years of age, you should be doing 14 hours a week of activity. 70% of that should be football and 30% should be non-football. If you're 16 or older, your hours never go above 17 hours. So once you get to the age of 16 or older, it sits at 17 hours maximum. 70% is football and 30% is non-football. If you're struggling working out those percentages and what the hours should look like, guys, remember, we've got Ben in the office. You can flick him an email and he'll work out the hours for you exactly and send it back to you on an email. Now, in regards to what football is and what non-football is, just to explain it, okay, if you do outdoor football, whether that be five-a-side on the grass, whether it's you still playing a regular season, but in the summer with your club teams, if you're doing indoor, it doesn't matter whether it's three-a-side or 10-a-side. If you do futsal, if you're doing one-on-one training, if you're doing football down at the park with your friends, even if you're just having a kick around, hitting the ball across the field to each other for half an hour, that all counts as football. So that's part of that 70%. So if we work out that 9 hours a week needs to be football and 4 hours needs to be non-football, then most of your non-football and activity will be covered with that football and summer program that we've just given you, which includes a lot of running and strength training. Your football that you need to acquire, the 70%, you need to make sure that you're on top of that. Now, the best way to do it is get a pen, piece of paper or a notepad or a diary and start recording every week. Week 1, put the date in and record your hours each day, what you're doing and how much you're doing. At the end of the week, review it. And if you've gone a little bit under, just set yourself a reminder for the following week. You need to make sure your hours are correct. If you've gone a little bit over, then make sure we don't go too much over and just, again, set that reminder for the end of that week for you. So that non-football and elements, as I said, most of it will be taken up by that summer program that we've just assigned to you. If you need to fill in more hours for that 30%, it could be filled in with anything like swimming, bike riding, going for runs, touch football, basketball, netball, whatever it may be. Again, though, note that the non-activity shouldn't really be a high intensity. Probably the only one thing that we'll have running at the high intensity would be that speed training, which is only done once or twice a week, and it's only for a really short time frame of time. Now, next thing, one of the things that we've wanted to introduce for a long time was nutrition. We wanted to do this properly and correctly. So with the nutrition, we've spent probably 6 months researching the best way to do it, whether we bring in a full-time nutritionist coach, is there a way of testing for nutrition? So we've spent a lot of time liaising and speaking with clubs back into Europe, back into England, some of my contacts in the Premier League. And one of the big things that we've recently discovered is one of the tests that they started implementing into clubs about 4 or 5 years ago back into Europe. Was a test that some of you may be aware of or may not be, but is intolerance testing. Now, the reason why intolerance testing is really important for players is this is personalised. So this is equivalent to the pro player pathway and fits in with our program, because this program is designed personally for each player differently based on what you need as a player. And this is where the game of football has changed a lot. You see in the UK, especially in the Premier League, you have a lot of talk around certain types of injuries. Like for the younger players, most of you would have been aware of being through something called Osgood-Schlatter's. Some of you are currently going through it at the moment. Some of you haven't had it yet. Some of you may not get it. Also, you'll see with the older players from the men's and the women's game, you get a lot of like metatarsal injuries, you get ACLs. They've actually since discovered that since a lot of the top clubs started implementing intolerance testing into their programs, some of these injuries have dropped by nearly 30%. And the reason why it's dropped so much is quite simply because foods and drinks that you put into your body cause inflammation. So as an example, you might have an intolerance to almond milk, and some of us might have an intolerance to normal cow's milk. And what that intolerance does, if you get a red flag on that particular food or drink, it actually flags up as red, which means it's very, very highly, it intolerates your system, which causes inflammation, which in turn can contribute to things like injuries, can affect your sleep patterns, can affect your ability to perform at your best, can make you feel tired and groggy. But once you're fueling your car and your body properly with the right fuel, and we know this scientifically by this objective intolerance test, within 6 to 8 weeks of changing your diet, it's great to see. Now, I know it's hard because there's a lot of families out there, and I'm one with 2 daughters. It's hard. You think you've got to try and get your children to eat salads all the time, and it's the best way to eat. But what you'll actually discover with this intolerance test is it's very, very clever, that it will tell you what is really good and what doesn't have an effect on the body, but also it will also flag up those red flags. And you'll be amazed. There's some things that you think are actually quite healthy for you. And I'm about to share with you in a moment. I actually went through the test myself because I'm a big believer in going through this myself before we put the players through it. So I'll give you a little example of what happened. I had to go in to give a hair sample, and I had to cut off so many strands of hair, and then it got sent off to a lab, and then the lab test it, and then all the results come back within 10 to 14 days, and I get the report. Once I got that back, it listed all the foods and drinks that were good for me in black, and then all the ones in red were actually ones that were causing me an intolerance. So as an example, most people would think fruit's really healthy for you, and it is the case for most people. But for me, I discovered that mango and limes are a red flag in my system and cause inflammation. So, you know, you could be eating mango and you could be eating limes and lemons and all these different fruits thinking they're healthy to eat, but for your system, they're actually a cause of inflammation. So what I'll do is now I'll share my results with you, and just to give you an idea so you can see some of the things that were flagged up for me, some of the things that weren't. Now, remembering when we get to do the tests for the players on the pro player pathway, and I'll explain how this works, because this is only new and we've only just implemented it into the program. No players being tested yet, and we'll explain how that will work. But when it comes your time to be tested, we will send you guys a kit out in the post. We'll give instructions on how you take a sample of the hair, and then how you put it into the envelope and then send it off. And then we get the results emailed back across to you via the lab. So those results will go directly to you guys. Once you've got them, if you're happy to share it because it's personal information, we'd love for you guys to share the information with us. We can then include it into the football plans to ensure that the nutrition is being followed properly. So I'll show you mine. Really, really interesting. So you'll see it's listed in different categories. So green vegetables, I'm really happy to say that I can eat all the green vegetables. Other vegetables, which was really interesting, I flagged up corn was one of them. That is a big one for me. On the meat, bacon, duck, emu. I've never ate emu before anyway, but I can't eat it. Ham and pork. If we look at things like on the right side, this is the really interesting one. I've always had issues drinking milk, and it was no surprise when I seen cheese, milk, full cream, skimmed, yogurt. I wasn't surprised by any of that because I've had issues over since being the age of 5 and 6 whenever I've drunk milk. The interesting one was plums, limes, and mango from the fruit, so I've removed them from my diet. Then you'll see things like alternative milks, and there's a lot of talk about these alternative milks being very healthy for you. Well, not for me because rice milk's no good. And then a real shocker for me, which was my biggest disappointment, was having to remove eggs out of my diet because I absolutely love eggs. So it looks like I'm going to have to go to duck eggs at the moment. But all the other eggs are pretty much out of bounds for me at the moment. We'll move on. Some of the other areas, vinegar and vinegar apple cider. Again, guys, all the ones in black are all completely fine. The ones in red are the ones that are causing issues. This is a huge one. On the right side, chocolate and sweeteners. So any Cadbury's chocolate, Dove chocolate, Haigh's chocolate, Nestle chocolate are a no-go. I then noticed that you'll probably notice under chocolate though, which is quite interesting, Lindt chocolate was okay. I actually then went and done a little bit of research just to see what the differences was between, like, as an example, Nestle's chocolate or Cadbury's chocolate compared to Lindt chocolate. And it actually blew me away of how much junk is added into Cadbury's chocolate. There's emulsifiers, there's all sorts of different chemicals added into the chocolate. When you look at Lindt chocolate, it is literally cocoa powder, a little bit of butter, and that's the makeup of Lindt chocolate. Certain types of breads, white and wholemeal bread is an absolute no-go for me. Now, some of the research that I've been told, and a lot of the feedback, about 85% of people will flag up for white and for wholemeal bread. And it's a pretty much a no-brainer because bread will cause major inflammation. I've had a chat with a lot of the pro clubs in the past 2 weeks when I was off researching. Pretty much, yeah, bread is not on most people's plates, and it wouldn't surprise you, it's not on a lot of athletes' plates anymore, because it is proven because of the yeast elements, it causes inflammation in the joints, and they just can't run the risk of getting injuries because of inflammation caused by certain foods that they're eating. And then just the last one, I'll just flip through. So some of the other things you'll notice on this, which is really interesting, it even lists a lot of your home products, things like chemicals, like cigarette smoke's a big one for me, engine oil, methylated spirits. And what this means is it's not being around it or being close to things or touching even like engine oil on my skin. It will actually cause inflammation in my system. Black beans was on there. I'm just trying to think what some of the other ones, certain types of shampoos. So this is a real game changer for us. I'm so happy to bring this to the pro player pathway. Now, when this was initially first designed and it was first being used by a lot of the pro clubs in Europe, it was costing in the region of about $10,000. And I always thought this was going to be out of the reach of the pro player pathway. We've managed to get this test down now to around about $650. So what we've done is we are going to be adding it into the program for anyone who joins the pro player pathway from the 1st of October this year onwards. Now, for the guys who've joined us prior to the start of the 1st of October, what we're going to do is we're going to still offer the test to you guys, and we're going to give you the test within 4 to 6 weeks. So we'll get those testing packs. So we're going to honor that as well for you guys. But yeah, we'll get those out to you within the next 4 to 6 weeks. Now, there might be some families who aren't keen to give a hair sample from the child. That is completely up to you guys. It's your choice. You don't have to, but we would encourage it, because I think once the players, especially the younger players, the children, once they see that these are the things that are no good for the system, and these are all the things that are really good for the system, it can actually help you design and build that perfect play for them. And we'll speak a little bit more in the coming weeks and months on how we build the plate in regards to how much protein should be on there, how much carbohydrates should be on there. But we thought for the first point of entry, let's eliminate any of those red flag foods first, and drinks, and also any other areas that you need to be concerned about. Now, what was also an interesting one was like toothpaste. And apparently Colgate and Steradent is quite a common one. And people don't actually realise that actually it creates an inflammation response to the whole body. I was quite fortunate that it was just Steradent for me, but I know a lot of people will use Colgate. So that's another thing as well that we need to look out for. So a little bit about, we're going to move on, guys, to a little bit of a quick talk just about our GPS trackers. I think most of us are all using our GPS trackers now, and we've got no issues with them. If anyone still is having any issues with GPS, if you want to just drop Ben a message, and he'll put a call into you next week once he returns. But I just put a little small note on just to make sure we were all across the GPS trackers. And a little bit of information just to include. And we had our Pro Player Pathway package recently assessed, and we're going to be in the US with it next year as well. It's getting a lot of sort of interest behind it at the moment, and people are seeing and hearing a lot of the success stories we're already getting, which we're going to explain about in a moment. But you guys will be pleased to know that you guys have all got on the Pathway program very early on, which is good for us and it's good for you guys, but also the benefits of that, a lot of you guys got on the program quite early and got it at a really cheaper price. Just to share with everyone what the current price is at the moment. So moving forward, this is the actual price of the program. So I know for the majority of you guys who've recently got on the program, or for players who got on the program prior, you guys have got on it at such an amazing price. He's done really well, and we're so happy to have you on board and be some of the first players with us. But this is the price that's going into the US market next year because it's getting that popular. We've realised it's the only niche program that works with players remotely from your own location, wherever you're based. So we just thought we'd share that one with you. Some success stories in the UK. So I don't think the guys on mind are sharing it, but hopefully we've got Charlotte online with us today. She'll be watching in, but mum and dad won't mind me sharing this one. When we were in the tour, we've had Charlotte with us for quite a while on the program. She's been working with me quite closely for about 18 months, working in private sessions, one-on-ones. And Charlotte was very fortunate when we went to the UK. She got to trial and train with Liverpool Football Club. She also got to trial and train with Bolton Wanderers. And she also got to trial and train with Manchester United. The pleasing thing for Charlotte was that she went to Bolton Wanderers and they were very, very honest with us. She actually trained with their women's squads, and they actually said she was too good for them and they wouldn't entertain giving her an opportunity because they thought her level was too high for Bolton, which was very nice to get that honest feedback. One of the good bits of news was she got looked at by Manchester United and also by Liverpool, and both clubs said if and when her and her family decide to move to the UK, both clubs said they would happily offer her a contract to sign for the clubs. I think Charlotte's, for anyone who knows Charlotte, she has followed Manchester United, but also she has an affinity with Liverpool as well, and she loves Liverpool due to her mum being from the UK and from Liverpool originally. And yeah, it's very, very promising for Charlotte. So she's received an offer. So it is one of our other success stories from our Pro Player Pathway. So big congratulations and well done to Charlotte. And we'll share more of her good news stories over the coming weeks and months. Also, a big shout out to Thomas Adams, who was actually one of our winners last year for the objective testing and went on the tour with us. And he got looked at by Bolton, Stephen Gerrard's Academy and Tranmere Rovers. We're really pleased to announce that he's been invited back by not only Stephen Gerrard's Academy, but also Tranmere Rovers Football Club. For anyone who knows who Tranmere Rovers are, they actually play a few divisions below the Premier League. They have an international academy linked to the club, and they train side by side with the top team, which is quite exciting. And they were very impressed with what they've seen in Thomas. and he's got an opportunity. He's going to be going back on the 11th of January for the tour back for the trials, and he's going to be getting looked at by both clubs. The exciting thing for that is that Tranmere Rovers recently have promoted 2 players from their international academy into their top team. And one of those players who's recently signed for the top team, the club have actually just received an offer to sell him for over £1.5 million, which is phenomenal success story for not only for the player, but for a club like Tranmere Rovers who will sell the player on. And that's going to be for a bigger and better opportunity for that particular player. It will make the club a lot of money as well, which will then help them invest back into that international academy. Tranmere Rovers actually removed their full-time academy for many, many reasons and decided to go down the route of having an international academy instead. And there's a lot of clubs, especially a lot of the lower league clubs, are doing this. And again, the reason why this is so important for you guys on the pro player pathway, because part of those fees and monies that go back in of that £1.5 million will benefit you as a player if you end up at Tranmere in the future. So big congratulations to Thomas Adams on achieving that opportunity to return and to trial with both of those clubs. And he also received amazing feedback from Bolton Wanderers. And if and when he returns, and if he was ever located in the UK, they've said they would quite happily offer him a position to go and be at Bolton and to trial with them with a view to signing for them. Also, we had Liam Williams on the tour with us. Liam's only 12 years of age, 13 years of age, and he trains with Bolton. He trains with Preston, and I believe it was Blackburn as well. Bolton raved about Liam. Again, how happy they were with him. They said if he was living in the UK, he would get snapped up in a heartbeat. So just for anyone who understands Bolton Wanderers, they are what you call a category 3 club. So they're a couple of levels below the likes of your Manchester Cities and Liverpools. But my belief after watching Liam and working closely with him over the past 6 months, my belief is Liam's good enough to play for a category 1 club. And I think he could sign for an Everton, a Liverpool, a Man City, Man United quite easily. So we're just doing a bit of work in the background, and I'd hopefully Colin won't mind me sharing it, but yet we're trying to help Liam achieve that dream in the next 12 to 18 months and getting him back to the UK full time. Now, that's the end of the presentation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open back up now, and we'll have a little look at a couple of the questions, and I will hopefully share my screen back again. Ben, are you still there? Hey, Ben. Hi, Ben. Maybe Ben's gone. I'm just going to pull up the questions, guys, and then hopefully Ben's back online in a second. All right.
There we are. I was trying to talk and it wasn't working.
Sorry, I realised I muted everyone. That's my fault.
No, that's all right.
Do you want to read out any questions we've got for us, Ben? And
yeah, so this is one that I was thinking as you were going through before that I feel like some players might ask. With the training program, when you were saying that the 6 kilogram dumbbells were for the age of 13, 14, what would you recommend the older kids use? Because I feel like some people will want to know that.
Yeah, great question. So we'll include that one in the email that we send out next week. But it's pretty much the exercise, 2 of the exercises that we do with these dumbbells. It shouldn't be hard. It should be out of 10. For a player to be able to lift the dumbbell over the head and back down, it should be a 2 or a 3 out of 10. So the gauge would be if the player goes into Kmart as an example and just lifts up some of the lighter dumbbells, maybe a 4 or a 5 kilo just to try it. If they can easily do 8 to 10 reps and it feels like it's a 2 or a 3 out of 10, then that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for it to be hard whatsoever. It's more about just pushing through more so with your body weight, but just having the balance of having the weight in your hands So it's not about building big biceps and triceps. It's just more about more body weight movement. But we'll include this on the email out.
Yep. And then we had another one that was put in the chat from Harrison, just asking about the 7 minutes 30. That's per kilometer, right? For the running?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yep. And if anyone else wants to send through any questions, just put them in the chat, or you should be able to unmute yourself now if you want to quickly ask. But just 1 moment.
So guys, if anyone has got any other questions, if you want to drop a question in the chat for us, we're going to be online for the next 5 or 10 minutes before we close. So I've just noticed there's a question from Harrison Corb. Where do I find the beat tests on the app? So the beat tests on the app. So there's a couple of apps you can download. There's a couple of free ones. I'll tell you what they're called because I've got a few of them on my phone. There's one that's called Beat Test, and it's spelled BEEP. And what I'll do is I'll share it to the group chat. So hopefully everyone can see that one. And then also there's another one called Bleep Test. So it's BLEEP. Because in the UK, I don't know why, but we actually call it a bleep test. We don't call it a beep test. So I've dropped them in there. Hopefully you can see that in the group chat. And it's also recorded on my screen, so you'll get to see that when we share the recording back as well. So I'll just keep chatting for a couple of seconds, but if no one doesn't drop any more questions, then we will end the call in a few minutes and we'll share the link out to you. But just to go over, guys, you've got your nutrition all sorted over the next couple of weeks now, which is going to be amazing. So again, if anyone's got any quick questions on nutrition, drop it in, guys. In regards to the hair sample, as you can tell, I don't have any hair. I actually had to just get hair quite embarrassingly shaved off my leg. But as long as the players have got enough hair, and it's roughly about an inch of hair, and they need about 6 to 7 strands of hair, it just gets dropped in a small plastic bag and then mailed off, and then you get results back within 10 to 14 days. So if anyone's got any questions around the nutrition elements, please feel free to drop it in now. And then also just a recap on the summer program. Guys, we need to make sure that we're checking those couple of key areas, that we're doing 70% of your week's football, 30% non-football, which is the summer program we've just built for you. And that 70% needs to be based off your age. So if you're 12, you should be doing 13 hours a week. If you're 10, you should be doing 11. If you're 9, you should be doing 10 hours a week. If you're 9 years of age and you're doing 10 hours, 7 hours will be football and 3 hours will be non-football. The summer program that we just shared with you, it should take up no more, as I look across it, than 2.5 to 3 hours a week. 3.5 hours once you add in your long runs maximum. I'm not seeing any more questions coming in. Is there any questions that you got emailed, Ben, that we haven't covered? Or
not really. I didn't really get any sent through. There was one, but it wasn't about this side of things. It was more just a personal question that I got back from with. But just quickly, actually, with the summer program, and you were talking about like how players are going to measure out distances for both the sprints and for the long distance ones. An app that I use sometimes is called Strava, and that's very good. It's like a running app, and you can set it on your phone or your watch, and you can basically say, I want to do a 2K, and it'll let you run, and then it will beep or buzz once you've done that 2 kilometers. And then that's a good indicator at times it as well.
And you can even set that to like a split, so when you get to 1 kilometer, then you know when to turn back.
Yeah.
Strava. So is that Strava? Do you want to drop that in the chat for us, for everyone?
Yep. Meeting group chat. Yeah, and that's one way you can add friends and family and stuff and that, so you can get a bit competitive with it if you want as well.
Brilliant. Well, guys, I don't think we've got any more questions, so we'll hang on for 2 more minutes, guys. If we don't see any questions drop on, we'll for those guys who've just got back from the trip, we hope your jet lag's not too bad at the moment. Mine's pretty good. I got up and had it this morning nice and early in the gym, but I think I'll have an early one tonight. And for those guys who haven't been on the trip with us, I hope everyone has a great evening. And as I say, if there's no more questions dropping in the next minute, we'll disconnect the call.
Yeah.
So any more football while you're in the UK, Ben? Have you got any more games to attend? Or
I was looking at Man City Arsenal this weekend, but it's very expensive.
oh.
Yeah.
It'd be nice. It'd be nice if you had a really nice boss who'd buy your tickets, wouldn't it?
That would be amazing. No, but I was looking at going to like a Reading game or something, just to like experience like that kind of football. But they're away, and all the teams around here are away.
All right, great question. So someone's just asked us, can you do the distance running on a treadmill? No, we don't want it done on treadmills for two reasons. One, it's running on treadmills not the same as running outdoors. It doesn't give the body the same effect, and we're trying to recreate that same effect as if like when you're running on a football pitch. Also, the GPS trackers don't work indoors, and we want all this recorded on GPS trackers. If we allow you to go on treadmills, that means we're not going to have the GPS track results, and even if you say you're doing it, it's still going to show up to us that you haven't done the run. So good question, and I'm glad someone did ask that, because we would have got 4 weeks in and then someone would have said, oh, we were doing running on treadmill. So no, guys, it's got to be all outdoors and get out into the elements. Make sure, obviously, get out in the sun and the heat. Make sure you put plenty of sunscreen on, get your hats on. Make sure you got the right sun protection. But yeah, we want it done in the outdoors. So great question. I don't think there's any more. So what we'll do is we'll let everyone go. Enjoy your weekends. Enjoy the rest of your time in the UK, Ben. And we'll be in touch in the next week or so.
Yeah. Talk soon.
Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
Thank you.